Hi world, welcome to Brian A. Law School, your go-to place for good governance as well as the rule of law. Today, I have a double bundle of joy. One is to be able to launch a new show in the channel called Ask Africa Show. This Ask Africa Show is a community service show wherein we seek to provide the crucial platform to the youth as well as Africans in general, so as to discuss pertinent issues and contentious issues that bedevil our countries, our regions, as well as the continent as a whole. The Ask Africa show also seeks to offer a platform where Africans in general can raise their voices and their voices to be heard. If you feel like you have issues which are not being addressed fully by the proper channels or the institutions of the law, then the Ask Africa show gives you the opportunity to raise those issues and to be heard and for the world to hear what you have to say as Africans. The second bundle of joy is that I am joined today by a special person who has agreed, or who rather agreed to start this show with me and to be my first guest in the show. I'll just read you a small bio about her. Her name, I'll let her say that herself, but she's a born-again young woman. She's a believer of Jesus Christ, which is a very attractive thing. She's passionate about touching lives, and she has close to 6 years experience in community service, mainly engaging the youth and the children. She is currently a member of the New Generation Mentors Initiative that focuses on inspiring the young generation through empowerment, reinventing their thinking through mentorship, and sharing hope for a better future. She is an award holder of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award, which is a non-formal education and learning framework operating in more than 130 countries and territories around the world. She is a member of the Youth Success Association, YASA, which seeks to empower the youth, women, and persons with disabilities through employment creation, mentorship, entrepreneurship, and training. She is also a third-year student at the Kenyatta University, pursuing economics and statistics. And she is also a participant in the Young African Leaders Initiative, Yale Regional Leadership Center East Africa, cohort 39, which is where I met her. Beverly Loice Kituzi, kindly please say hi to our audience.
Hi, as you heard, my name is Beverly Loice, and I am happy to engage with you all today.
Thank you. So the first issue of discussion in our Ask Africa show is something which is not new to us. Rather, it is something that has been with us for many years. And if I may say, it is something that has become now a serious issue: environmental pollution, and more specifically, air pollution. In the UN General Assembly of 2019 as well as of 2020, there was concern by various parties, various stakeholders who have signed the the UN Convention framework on climate change. And the major issue was that developed countries as well as developing countries are not doing enough to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. These greenhouse gases, they retain so much heat, the sun's heat in the atmosphere, and that heat that has been retained in the atmosphere ends up warming the planet. So we have the concepts of global warming. And once the planet has been warmed to above the required levels, like right now they have said we need to reduce the global temperatures to below 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2050. So countries need to reach net zero emission of greenhouse gases or other carbon emissions by 2050. And this calls upon radicalization by governments to reduce their carbon emissions through industrialization, through carbon footprints, and also taking into part all other environmental conservation activities, which will enable the world to have a clean atmosphere, better for our children. And as it is said that we the present generation have borrowed this world from our children. So we owe it at least to them to have a safe environment, a clean and healthy environment, so that when they grow up, they have a nice place to live in. It's also important to note that this issue of environmental pollution and climate change has become so severe to the extent that countries have had to promulgate laws in their countries to protect this. When we come to Kenya, which is our case in point today, we find the Constitution of Kenya provides under the Land and Environment chapter 5, as well as the Bill of Rights, which provides that it is the right of every citizen, an inherent right of every citizen, to have a clean and healthy environment. And Kenya has also gone ahead and enacted the Climate Change Act, which provides frameworks into which the country can achieve its forest cover, as well as reduce its carbon emissions and all that. So this being a global problem, not just a Kenyan problem, but today we want to talk about the Kenyan issue. And we see that there has already been complaints, especially from citizens or residents who live close to industrialized areas, close to factories. And in fact, this environmental pollution that we want to talk about today majorly is focused on industrialization, where factories emit a lot of carbon or a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, all in the name of building our economies. So Beverly, we had discussed, or rather we had seen a documentary from Citizen TV, which was christened We Can't Breathe. So kindly please enlighten our viewers, enlighten our audience on what this documentary was all about and how the residents of, or rather the various people affected by pollution complained, and what was the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And I am also being enlightened through this, just getting to know the legal side of this. And I think the major reason why we are having this conversation is to just let um, let citizens know, let Kenyans know that this is actually a danger, you know. And the moment you know that something is poses a danger to you, it's when you can now act on it.
Yes.
One thing I believe is that if I am just told don't do this or don't do that, without really having the principle behind why am I not supposed to do it, it really won't make sense. But once I am so aware, very aware that this is how this thing affects me, then I'm very conscious of my actions with regards to that. And so that's just one of the major reasons why it's important for us to have this conversation.
Yes.
And so when we look at the story in the stories in the documentary you've just mentioned, I think it's a sad state when you come to know about it. And one thing Kenyans should know, one thing we all should know, is that it's not just what we see that harms us, but even what we don't see.
Yes.
Because it's so easy for me to look at to look around me, and because I'm not seeing smoke, or I'm not seeing, or if there is smoke, it's not really a quantifiable amount, like it's not so much, I'm like, this doesn't affect me.
Yes.
But when I am aware that it is more than what I can see, I become aware that even that little amount is so dangerous to me.
Yes.
And that's the case in the stories we've had from that documentary that was aired sometime in July. Yes. By the media house you mentioned.
Yes.
And it is a sad state of it's a sad state of affairs when I listened to the stories of those residents. Yes. And just how much their livelihood has been affected, has been impacted by the presence of this industrial factory around their neighborhood. It is just so sad. Yes. You know. And of course the very large amounts of pollution released, especially into the air. And that's why it's important for us to mostly look at air pollution, because this is something that affects it's in the atmosphere, it's everywhere.
Yes.
We inhale these gases, they get into our systems, they affect our immunity, they compromise the development of our body organs, and it is sad. And so in the case of residents from around that region, just here in the city in Nairobi, it is so sad to just look at how a company that was a factory that was put up in their region
Yes.
just posed so many dangers to their health at first, because I listened to the stories of those of parents being in so much pain because their children are being affected with respiratory infections. They are in and out of hospital, and it was so sad to even look at a parent who has lost their child,
Yes.
and the one they've remained with is also affected by respiratory infections. It is just so sad, and to think that this company is doing that, and this factory has been licensed to be there, has been licensed to release to emit gases into the atmosphere. And now the question comes in: what is the role of our regulatory bodies,
Yes.
the environmental regulatory bodies? What is the role? Because here in Kenya we have an environmental regulator. So what is their role, and what are they doing about it? Because listening to that documentary and just getting to know that it took more than a year, it took more than a whole year
Yeah.
of public uproar, because now residents began taking pictures, putting it on social media, and just complaining, just letting it be known out there that their lives are in danger.
Yes.
And it took more than a year before the authorities responsible even began taking action. And it is sad that even after they began taking action, a few months later, this company was licensed again to continue with operations.
Yeah.
And I listened to residents talking about how most of them, if not all, cannot even open their windows,
Yeah.
because every day you have to be clearing surfaces, and it's soot black. It was sad to just behold that view. Children who can't even go out to play, because parents say every time their kids will go out to play, they'll come back sick, back home sick. And it is just so sad to look at that. And I think what really got into me was when I was watching one of the parents just saying, this owners of these companies, they have children. They should bring their children to live here, even just for a week, to
Yeah.
be exposed to the kinds of conditions we are exposing our children to, even just for a week. Then they will know what we are going through. And it is so sad to look. It is just so sad. I think that really drew my attention to the dangers that we actually are exposed to. And it is not just in that side of town. We even have stories from slum dwellers, another company that has been put up there, and it emits not even through the chimneys. And these are things that are just, but when you get to the ground, like when you get to the factories, these are not, the regulations are not really being followed. And the World Health Organization does so much to ensure it just sets up regulations for the environment. And now this responsibility is thrown to individual countries. And so it's the responsibility of Kenya, of the government, and of Kenyans to ensure we uphold this. And so if we do not do this, so where are we headed to? And from research, we find out that air pollution causes so many deaths annually globally. It is a matter that we need to look into. We just need to take responsibility. And from that documentary, one thing I was just left asking is, what is the role of our regulatory bodies and what are they doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much. I've loved that insight. I've loved what you've said about that we might take air pollution for granted because it is something that we cannot see. Actually, for many years, that was one of the biggest challenges in the global platform, where people were saying, or various players were saying, that climate change is a hoax. Climate change is fake, because how can you see carbon dioxide being emitted? How can you measure what has been emitted? How can you measure which greenhouse gas has been sequestrated or absorbed from the atmosphere? So for a long time, that was the biggest challenge. But we'd like to say this, that climate change is real. Climate change is not a hoax. Air pollution is real. And actually, in many countries in the world, as you have said, it causes so many deaths in a year. Like even in that residential area that you've talked about, where the steel milling factory had been put up in Nairobi, tens have died. And this has been documented, tens have died while the polluters continue getting rich. Other thing that has come up from your analysis, and which I am concerned about, is that this company was given the license to pollute within the required cap. But when there were some tests, or by a certain company which was taking the tests of how much is this company polluting, it was found that they are polluting even up to 150% above the cap which they were put into. And then, which brings me to, say something about.
Yeah, you just reminded me about that, and just linking it to what I said earlier, that it is not just what we see, because from the research carried out, those are some particles in the smoke release that we cannot see, like they cannot be seen, the very fine particles. Scientifically, they are called the PM 2.5.
Yes.
And of course, the regulation, there is a regulation that only this amount of PM 2.5 particles should be let into the environment. And it is intriguing to see when we saw in that investigation that during the day, the levels of PM 2.5 are within the stipulated
Yes.
Levels.
Yes.
But as the sun goes down, as evening comes, and then later into the night, we realize that the levels of PM 2.5 now rise even from the research. It was more than 5 times the stipulated levels, and these are the very particles that get into your bloodstream. They get into your bloodstream, they affect for children, it affects development of organs. They can't develop normally. It affects the lungs begin failing. And so it's just tough to know that that's what is happening. That's what these factories are doing. And on paper, it is clear that this is the required amount, but that's not the case.
Yeah, and then also talking about the regulatory institutions like the National Environmental Management Authority, as well as the tribunal. There was also cases which were taken to the tribunal by the General of NEMA, but you could see the findings of the case, that indeed there is this factory is polluting, and indeed this factory is in contravention of the citizens' right to a clean and healthy environment. But there was nothing being done. They will recommend the factory to be closed, but the factory will still go on with operations. How do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, that shook me, because if NEMA has already stated, and NEMA is the regulatory body when it comes to environment in our country, has already said that company XYZ should be closed down because its levels of pollution is just beyond, and then the company goes ahead to the tribunal, and the tribunal rules out what the environmental regulator has said. And in one of the letters that the environmental regulator mentioned, is that it appeared like there's nothing they can do, there's nothing more they can do.
Yes.
And so I'm left wondering if the authority that's supposed to ensure our environment is safe gets to that point of saying they like of implying that there's nothing more they can do, where are we left? And that just brings me back to our legal systems and the constitution, because these are things that are in the constitution. These are rights that we have, right to a clean environment. And so if another body in the legal system can rule out and just deny citizens this right, so where are we headed to? So it's kind of disappointing to just look at what and these are people's lives that are being played with. It's not just any other thing, these are lives.
Yes.
You know. Yeah, it's sad. It's just sad to see.
Now, that has been well understood, and I think our viewers have well understood the devastating effects of air pollution that come especially through industrialization. And we are not saying that it is only the industries who are polluting the environment. Even us as citizens, when we are traveling from point A to point B with our vehicles and whatever, with our carbon footprint, we are responsible for pollution, albeit at a lower level than as compared to the factories. Now, there is a global concern that we are supposed to reduce our carbon emissions at least by 45% by 2030, and then to reach net zero by 2050, and then by the end of this century, the Earth to be totally decarbonized. Now, what solutions? Real time, actually, what quick solutions? What immediate and realistic solutions can we undertake to ensure that we curb the menace of environmental and more so air pollution?
Yeah, of course, now after we have known that this is a problem we have, we really need to think, so what is it that we can do, you know? And one thing I say is that it's before we can even think about globally, it begins from the individual level.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it begins from right there. And so as an individual, what is it I can do to ensure I am containing the situation in the environment I'm in? And if all of us take individual responsibility, then it means as a country we are able to say we are taking responsibility. So it's just so important for us to start asking ourselves, what is it I am doing as an individual that is contributing to this, you know? And one other thing that is so plays a key role in this could be tree planting, you know. And of course this is a conversation we've had since I was in primary school, and being told about planting trees or trees taking some carbon dioxide and all that. And I think it's something we've grown to be so familiar with that we don't really give it much thought, you know. But it is so important to know that trees are considered as one of the most effective and a cheap way of just and maintaining a balance in our atmosphere, you know. And so it is important for us to begin thinking about it. And of course, as Kenyans, we have tree planting days and this, but the problem with it is that as Kenyans we have reduced tree planting to an event, you know, such that on Saturday we'll have tree planting, or on national we have a national tree planting day. So we will plant trees and then we forget about it till 1 year later. And that's where we fail, because if this is something that is sustainable, this is something we need to commit ourselves to. We need to really think, so what is it we even with regards to tree planting. And and of course, once we take keen interest in that, we begin investing in it, and we invest it from as low as how are we going to get the seedlings, because that has been another issue, and I think it's something you can talk.
Yeah.
Us having a deficit in seedlings.
Yes.
And so yes, we would want to really plant trees rampantly, but we don't have seedlings, we don't have quality care for these trees. And so one thing I would say to each one of us is let's stop thinking of tree planting as an event. I think that's where we should begin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I like that point on tree planting, because research has shown that trees have the potential of absorbing a third of the carbon emissions in the atmosphere through the subtle process of photosynthesis. And also, it is encouraging, or citizens should be encouraged to look at trees from a holistic angle, not just carbon absorption. Trees also create better habitats. So where we've planted trees, bird species will come in, animal species can thrive there and all that. Trees also clean our rivers. Trees also provide food, like the avocado trees, the mango trees, the orange trees, all these trees. Trees also provide medicine. There are trees of medicinal value. So if we can plant trees with the subtle aim of enjoying the tree in a holistic manner, not just carbon absorption, then this can also be something that can be looked into and can be incentivizing to even landowners to set apart 10% of their land to plant trees. Because you see, we have government initiatives where the government, or rather the countries which are part of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, are supposed to increase their tree cover by 10% in their countries. So we need even all players, landowners, the private sector, the government, the schools, the hospitals, everyone is supposed to be involved in this tree planting thing. And then, as you said, people just take tree planting as an event where you come and show off, you plant a tree and you forget about it. When you come after a year, that tree died a long time ago. So we should change this language.
You plant a tree and then you write there your name.
Yes. And then you don't even care about it. So I think we should change tree planting initiatives to tree growing initiatives. So growing means you put it down and you take it as your pet, or you take it as your brother or sister, and you grow up with that tree. You water it day and night, you prune it, you do everything until that tree grows. Which brings me to the point. We have so many street families. So many street families who are just seated in the streets doing nothing. And before I come to street families, let me just point out that governments are really trying, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, to plant trees. Yeah, for instance, the government of Ethiopia in July 2019 planted 350 million trees in 12 hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
the prime minister. No wonder he even got a Nobel Prize, if I may say. The government of Tanzania is partnering with the private sector and other non-state actors to plant 50 million trees. The government of the Democratic Republic of Congo set aside, I think it was around $1 billion US or something, to reforest 1 million hectares of trees. And Kenya, please tell us what Kenya is doing.
Yeah, I mean, those are impressive, and those are levels we really haven't reached as Kenyans, But it's not like Kenyans, you're not trying. We are trying. It's just that maybe if we just correct that bit of making tree planting an event, we can get there. And also just investing, as you said, moving from tree planting to tree growing, because in Kenya we've also tried to do that, because there's a body that was set up, and that name escaped
The
my
net
mind
fund,
a bit.
the net fund,
Huh?
the National Environmental Trust Fund.
I'm not quite sure, but I'll just confirm. But
Yes.
yeah, it's the body has tried making steps in planting trees in some regions, in some counties, some areas. And I think it's also important that also the Kenya Forest Board, Kenya
Mm.
Forest
Services
uh,
Board.
uh,
Yeah.
Services Board, yeah,
Yes.
should come in so strong in helping, because they have statistics on which forests have suffered deforestation. They have statistics in, of course, things to do with forest fires that we have experienced, and so they can know where exactly there is need, first of all. And so I think just coming with the relevant bodies, it's important to do that. And also the private sector can really come in to help, because if we are looking at a case like Ethiopia with you said 50 million,
350 million.
350 million trees in 24 hours.
12 hours.
Not even 24, I'm like, in 12 hours. That's amazing, because as Kenyans, I can't really say we've reached that in years, to just emulate it, you know. And of course, I mentioned at the beginning, once we know that this is what is at stake, it is our health, our lives at stake, we are then able to take this responsibility, and not just look at the government. I think I attended a certain webinar, and the speaker was telling people that the problem with young people in Kenya is that we look at the government, and so we just sit back and like, the government is not doing it, the government should do this, the government should do this, but what should you do as an individual? That's where it starts. And so even as we look at all these statistics and looking at countries which have really gone a step forward to just ensure that they are doing something to save the environment, I think it's something we can learn from, and not just look at the government, but people. It all begins with us. What is it that we can do at our level, and look to the government, so yeah.
Yeah, I like the part you've talked about, people just looking at the government. And I'm also glad that the government of Kenya indeed is really trying to plant trees through the Ministry of Water, Environment, and Natural Resources. And someone can say they are doing this because they have a target. Like in the international arena, Kenya is supposed to pay. Kenya is supposed to plant 1.8 billion trees by 2022 to avoid being fined by the United Nations or something of the sort. So you can think, are they being motivated by the fines that they might pay if they do not plant the trees or something of the sort? So coming to look at it, Kenya is supposed to plant close to 2 billion trees by 2022. And then once these trees are planted in the events, as you've said, they are left there. Why don't we incorporate the street families who are ever increasing in our streets to be given a
Yeah.
rehabilitation program where they can be put in charge of the trees which are planted all over? They are taught how to conserve those trees, and then in the process, they are provided for their basic needs and whatnot. Can you please comment on something like that?
Yeah, I think that's really a step that could be effective, because not just looking at it from now the tree planting side, but just looking at also the issue of street families, the presence of street families in our city, in our towns, and all that. So what is it that could be done about it? But again, looking at it from how you have raised it, I think it's so impressive, because like it would be a very noble cause that we are bringing these street families together. And so it's something we can really look into, and also engage. And also for our viewers, those who are watching, if you have ideas on how we could do this, it's important to just come together and think, what can we do about this, the issue you raised about bringing together street families to enhance the tree planting processes, you know, because we are looking at a large scale thing. It's not just planting 20 trees and living. We are thinking of millions, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And so this could be an effective way of handling it, looking at it from both sides, that it's not just gaining from their availability and the labor they can help us with, but also that their lives through the process are being impacted. And yeah,
Yeah, and I can
that's
say this is realistic and it's doable, because I personally, in 2018 and 2019, led a group of street families and street children, and we planted trees and we conserved them in the Menengai Forest in Nakuru County.
wow.
Yes, and this is documented. Actually, I will share the link to that story in the description
Yeah.
box of this video. Now, tree planting has been well elaborated. We had the other issue of the tribunals or the regulatory bodies being toothless, if I may say. They can just bark, but they cannot bite. So it brings me to the other most important solution that is being implemented in the international arena, and now sub-Saharan Africa needs to embrace it, which is climate litigation. Climate litigation, in simple terms, is where cases are brought in domestic courts against the government for failing to implement its carbon emission reduction projects. And also cases are brought by individuals, by companies, and by citizens against polluters. So for instance, if it is that factory which is polluting in the residential area, citizens can come together, or the legal fraternity can come together, or any individual can come together and invoke the constitutional right to a clean and healthy environment is being threatened or infringed by company A. So you can file that case in the High Court, which has the mandate to interpret and hear those cases and to give a redress of the various solutions that can be undertaken to discipline that errant company. So the High Court has more power. The High Court is a creation of the Constitution. It has more power as compared to the tribunal. Also, if you cannot bring the case against the constitutional rights of someone, you can bring the case against in relation to public nuisance. Public nuisance is where I use my property as, let's say, a factory, and I emit now the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Though they will dissipate, though those greenhouse gases will disappear in the atmosphere and you won't see them, but they interfere with that public space which someone else is supposed to enjoy. So those other people who are supposed to enjoy that public space can come up together as an individual, as a group, or as a foundation, or whatever, and bring this case to court on a public nuisance claim under the law of torts, the civil wrongs. Now, there's a foundation called the Agenda Foundation. The Agenda Foundation took the Dutch government, the government of the Netherlands, to court, starting way back in 2013, and there were so many appeals. And in 2019, December, the Dutch Supreme Court, once and for all, came up with a ruling that indeed the government of the Netherlands, or the state of the Netherlands, is under an obligation to reduce its carbon emissions by 2020, as they signed up to the international conventions. And the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, in response to that ruling by the Supreme Court of the Netherlands, said that indeed the government of Netherlands, and by extension all other governments of the world, have an obligation to reduce their carbon emissions and to reduce air pollution in their countries for the benefit of their citizens. Now, having all the avenues in the law, having all the structures. In fact, even Kenya, we have the Environment and Land Court, which has been specifically carved out by the Constitution to hear land and environment-related matters. In Kenya, we have climate litigators, like myself, advocates who are ready to go to court and take these polluters and hold the government accountable for not fulfilling the international obligations in respect to climate change. Now, having all those avenues, having all those platforms, and having the goodwill amongst the citizens, why do you think, or do you think climate litigation can thrive in Kenya as well as sub-Saharan Africa?
I think when you've mentioned about the Dutch government being taken to court, I think it has reminded me of the only case so far I have had in Kenya. Maybe there are others, but I think in July of this year, there is a court that ruled. It was in Mombasa. Yeah. There's a slum there.
Owino Uhuru.
Owino Uhuru. Yes. Yeah, Owino Uhuru, that slum. The court ordered that, ruled out that they're supposed to be compensated, I think about 1.3 billion by the government, because it was so clear that the government agencies that were responsible to regulate the pollution going on in that area, they failed, and that's just one case I know of, and so just getting to realize that these are things we have in the law. And if we can be very vigilant, and as you mentioned, climate litigators could just rise up and be so vocal and take these issues to court, we have a hope to just to make our environment better just through the law. You've also given us the option that even if it's not in the environmental side, we could go with nuisance.
Public nuisance, yes.
Public nuisance. And I think I was just smiling because I remember those are things I studied, I think in first year, the law of torts. And I was just wondering, okay, in the case of I don't know what versus who, I'm like, yeah. So it's interesting. So yeah, we have options. And so it's just a matter of us rising up and knowing that this is what we actually have. We have the power in our hands. We have the constitution. We have the law that stipulates what needs to be done. So I think there is hope. And just looking at that one case of Owino Uhuru, I have hope that if we can just be more vigilant in this, so that we can have so many of these cases being taken to court. Even when it's a government agency that is failing, we can be able to go to court, and also just the alignment of our legal system, such that if something is wrong, it is wrong. No matter who is doing it, it is wrong.
Yes. Yeah, that's very important. Actually, the beauty of climate litigation will be that once the case is being built, you as the attorney or you as the advocate, you will get public views. You will incorporate public opinions in the case, so the public will have a sense of ownership of the case. And then another thing, if these cases are taken to court, the courts have the power to give these cases the serious magnitude or priority that they need, so that they are known that indeed government is not doing this or this polluter is doing this. And then we also need the media. The media is supposed to be a very major stakeholder in climate litigation, so that it can assist in sensitizing the community and the citizens at large that indeed you must not go to the tribunal itself. You can take these claims to court because you have inherent constitutional rights to a clean and healthy environment, which is being threatened by governments in action, as well as by the polluters' action. So I think climate litigation is an area that we can indeed look into. And we have these things in Africa. We have the court system, we have the law, we have everything. So the platform is there. So we just need the goodwill from the citizens to be bold enough to speak. And we need the legal practitioners, the advocates like myself, to be bold enough to stand up against the government and against the polluters, and to have a vibrant and independent judiciary which will not fear to indeed say government is not doing this, so it's supposed to do this, or this polluter is doing this, close down with immediate effect. That can only happen through the power of an independent judiciary. Wow, I've seen we've spoken a lot. So maybe you just give us your closing remarks.
I think my closing remarks won't deviate so much from my opening remarks. That it is not just about what we can see, you know. And the fact that you are not experiencing those effects right now doesn't mean one day these things will not catch up with you. Because for most of us, we are always like, as long as I am okay, it's not affecting, then I'm fine. But for those of us who haven't watched that documentary that was aired by Citizen TV, the We Can't Breathe one on pollution, just take time and watch it and just know what kind of impact air pollution is having on lives, you know. And so the responsibility is in our hands. We now know what we are exposed to. We now know what is at stake. And so it would be important for us to begin taking action. And as we mentioned, it begins from an individual. Yes. And as young people, as old people, it is important for us to begin taking responsibility. And those of us like you, Brian, who are in the legal sector, you know, it is important for us just to take responsibility, you know. And for those individuals who are sitting in this boards, in the responsible authorities, yeah. I think it's time to just start thinking and reasoning out. It won't be fair that I am sitting in an environmental regulatory board and there's nothing I'm doing, or I am doing things that are against our environment. So it begins from that level of personal, like, what is the principle behind it? Let's just all understand that, and let's take responsibility, let's take action. And I have hope that our atmosphere here in Kenya is going to be cleaner. Yeah. And the reason why I say this, let me just say this in closing. A very close relation of mine, just before COVID came in Kenya, before the lockdown, had traveled to a neighboring country. And when she was coming back, she told me, the moment she was about to land at JKIA, she sensed the difference in the air. And she was like, our air is so dirty, so dirty. And I'm like, this is someone who has just been away for 2 weeks or so, and it is very evident, and that's in JKIA. So imagine all the pollution we inhale here in town, and those guys who are living around those areas. So it is so keen to just look at what are other countries doing that we are not doing, you know. So yeah, those would be my closing remarks. That I have hope. Yes. That there is a day that all the factories that are contaminating our environment, polluting our environment, will be brought to book. That the government will do what they are required to do. That the regulators will do what they are required to do. That everybody will do what they are required to do. Simply put.
There you have it, world. I cannot say it much better than how Beverly has concluded it. For you outside there who has anything that you want to contribute or to add in this discussion of climate litigation and tree planting, as well as air pollution in general, either in Kenya, in East Africa, or in Africa as a whole, kindly please drop us a comment in the comment box and we shall be sure to respond. Also, if you're outside there in any part of Africa, not only Kenya, and you feel you have contentious and pertinent issues which you would like us to discuss with you in this channel, kindly please drop us a comment on the description box. We shall get in touch with you. We shall discuss that pertinent issue, and we shall host you here in the channel so that we tell Africa indeed what is going on as we chart out possible solutions. Beverly is one of us. We shall be having Beverly here time and again. And actually, we shall have her soon, where Irene, she's supposed to discuss with us the effects of devolution in the education sector and how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected her studies as a university student. From us at Brian A. Law School, we just want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel, watch and like these videos, and share widely. Until next time, ciao.